Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Greg O'Connell, the Senior Director for U.S. Federal at Nutanix. Greg, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here.
And you know, we have clouds and we have federal agencies moving to the cloud, and we have federal agencies now moving to multiple clouds. Plus we have federal agencies still hanging on to data centers, and all for good reason. And so the question is increasingly, how do clouds communicate with one another? And dealing with the hybrid cloud environment is transforming to the hybrid multi-cloud environment. So what are the issues there, do you see?
Sure. So Nutanix actually just completed a study of public sector organizations on this very topic. And our research found that the primary drivers for agencies that move to hybrid cloud are largely, as you expect, issues like strengthening your overall cybersecurity framework, for example, data sovereignty. So as we know, different countries have different residency and sovereignty laws, and agencies need to be aware of where their data is stored and ensure they comply with local regulations. And another big one is data protection and recovery. In working with the government customers, we also found that agility is a top priority, and it's essential to be able to pivot quickly. So this means to be able to locate apps and workloads where they best meet the needs of the mission, or to meet strategic objectives in security, performance, compliance, cost, those kinds of things.
So this is complicated though, because if your workloads are in different brands of cloud, then you've got a more complex issue to deal with what's where, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And the pace of change in technology and those choices is staggering right now. So you've got to have an IT foundation that supports hybrid multi-cloud and gives government an IT environment that can adapt and be ready for new technologies and advancements.
Yes, because I think early on in the cloud, people were almost resigned to the fact of being in one single commercial cloud, and let's find out what happens, and we'll take the risk of being with a single vendor. And there were some glitches early on with certain departments that had trouble, backing out of a cloud. And they were stuck there. So is that part of the driver of this increase in multi-cloud?
It sure is. No one wants to be locked into a single or specific vendor or cloud vendor. That can be very limiting and expensive, and so hybrid multi-cloud can offer freedom of choice, which is very important. And not all cloud workloads are created equal. Not all workloads in general are created equal. So how are you going to manage all those clouds? That's a key consideration. So this is where companies like Nutanix come in. We deliver a single software-defined platform that can be deployed as fast as an hour and scale in 15 minutes. And this is anywhere. This is on-prem, this is the public cloud, the edge or hosted environments. So it's a common cloud operating model, and it dramatically reduces the complexity and the cost of a hybrid multi-cloud strategy.
So this is almost an abstraction layer that is between your agency and your data resources, which could be in your own premise or on multiple clouds.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay. And so you look at a lot of agencies moving to the cloud, and early on, COBOL was the problem or whatever. I mean, what are the contemporary problems and challenges in moving to clouds, do you see?
Sure. So government agencies don't always have the data they need to make decisions. Whether it's on-prem, whether it's cloud, if so, which cloud, where to locate these apps and workloads in which cloud you do choose. Is it really cheaper? How do I get visibility? Are my apps cloud ready? These are all considerations that we know firsthand as well. Customers are also getting a lot of cloud sticker shock. There's sort of an expectation and a thought process going in on what the budget is, what we're going to be able to spend on this cloud migration, and they quickly learn things that they didn't provision or plan for. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But that's why at Nutanix, we actually have a team of what we call cloud economists. So these are basically senior financial TCO and ROI experts, and they help our customers advise on what makes best sense on locating and moving their apps or workloads to where, considering on-prem versus in the cloud, and in the cloud, if so in the cloud, which cloud. So this gives them an opportunity up front to better model and understand the costs that they are about to experience and how best to manage to that.
It strikes me that's a multi-dimensional problem to try to figure out. One, you have simply how many computing cycles do I need for this application. This is how many users, this is my transactions per hour, this is how many hours a day and a year it runs, and this is the price of the different clouds to operate that. So that's one parameter. Sounds easy to say, but it's pretty hard to figure. But then there is the various technical services that different clouds offer. And you have to decide, what am I going to put as my own service just hosted in the cloud, or which service am I going to use from that cloud provider, which adds a technical question and it also adds a cost question. Am I putting it accurately?
Yeah, absolutely. And the analysis like this, these are all parts of what needs to be thought about in making that journey to cloud. And so that kind of analysis is extremely helpful to our customers as they navigate those choices and make decisions on which direction they need to go.
And cloud ready, I mean, that's a tough one too, because the cloud can emulate any environment. I mean, you can emulate, they even have clouds that emulate quantum environments, but they can certainly emulate 3270 and COBOL types of environments. So that means in theory, everything is cloud ready, but it doesn't really work out that way in reality, does it?
No, it really doesn't. That touches on another really big challenge. It's not easy or even always a clear path to move everything to the cloud. There are apps that are cloud ready, but then there are some that can take literally several years. And some cases you get these more challenging legacy apps that need to be refactored. And there are some applications you just can't modernize. So they're either too important or they're too big and they need the benefit of the public cloud, but you may still be better off running those workloads in their own data center with the benefits of a private cloud.
Or can you get the cloud to do that emulation job? Because very often people in modernizing their data centers are making them operate more like a cloud.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And costs. I mean, that's really the essential issue. And people say they want to go from capital expenditure model to operating expenditure. But as you said earlier, on the other hand, it costs a certain amount of money to do a certain amount of computing cycles, whether it's your computer or the computer in the cloud, because they're going to charge you for that. Plus, they want to make a margin on it.
Right.
And so do you find agencies, maybe you mentioned sticker shock, it's not as cheap in the operating model as they thought, throwing off all this extra money for doing other things?
Yeah, there are definitely instances where sticker shock occurs, and there are costs that are visible and known, and then there are costs that can really surprise our customers. And they've been surprised on many instances. What we've seen at Nutanix is those cost concerns can range from things like egress fees, where you have to pay to get your data back from public cloud if it turns out there was a reason you need it back or there was some mistake having put that workload in the cloud in the first place. There's a concept called micro waste. And so this is an interesting one. This means buying t-shirt sizes of instances where the result is the inability for our customers to purchase the exact compute, memory, and storage resources they need for a given workload in public cloud. So this gets a little in the weeds, but we know of one agency that had a 6-thread and 12 gig memory VM need, but the t-shirt size was 8 threads and 16 gig. So this creates 2 threads and 4 gig memory of waste. And since they can't be shared with other VMs, the customer overpays at the VM level. So this kind of micro waste may seem insignificant at the VM level, but this particular scenario resulted in over 20% excess cost for that customer. So that micro waste concept is while it's a sort of death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, and can really add up and have a significant impact.
In other words, they're small, medium, large. You need something in between for your...
Or a workload might have more significant compute, and you might have under provisioned for compute, and then you overrun, and then you get into on-demand and premium pricing scenarios as well. That again, these are the little nuances that aren't always easy to account for or identify up front. So the key takeaway here is that it's important for agencies to gain visibility to their costs. So this is why companies like Nutanix provide cost governance through a centralized management dashboard as an example. This way agencies can track consumption, whether on-prem or in the public cloud, from a single pane of glass, effectively charge back to participating divisions and give them the data to back it up as part of that model, set policies to govern your cloud spend. and even help agencies model these costs before actually making the commitment to migration.
Yeah, because sometimes they have different usage cycles over a calendar period or over a day period. I mean, there are agencies that people go home and they're not using the cloud application at night, so you want to spin down those instances and so forth. That's where the t-shirt size can get to be a problem if you're not 24/7.
So we have another example of a government agency that acts as an MSP. They're a service provider to a scientific community. And so they have very intensive data sets that require a lot of analysis, a lot of AI, ML type activity on these applications. They refactored, made the decision to move this to cloud, but these scientists are not IT people per se, and they were taking guidance from the overarching agency that's working with the public cloud provider to provide the service. But there was the caveat that you need to effectively turn these things off at night. So they run these large data sets. It's very compute and CPU intensive. And they simply forgot to turn the applications off on multiple instances.
Yikes.
Yep. We got the bill at the end of the month, and it was an order of magnitude higher than they expected. So that's a great example of things you can't always identify or prepare for in advance. So
right. So they, in effect, they didn't turn off the Bunsen burners in the lab, running all night and kept burning up the gas. Okay, yeah. Right. So this is where your economist can kind of come in and help you, as you say, model what you're actual operating. And cloud providers will work with you, right? I mean, if you're a federal agency, if you're a scientific agency, or one of the institutes of NIH or a cluster of them, you're a pretty big customer.
Right.
And they want the prestige of that customer as well. And so it sounds like you have some negotiating leverage, especially if you have an economist in your corner, say from Nutanix.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. The other issue is security. And people don't know whether it's secure because it's in the cloud or insecure because it's in the cloud. And they're kind of competing schools of thought on that.
Well, this is, probably comes up in every interview you do these days. But of course, I had to ask ChatGPT, what's the biggest security concern in a hybrid cloud environment? And I already knew what the answer was going to be. And it's
running ChatGPT.
Security is always the number one priority, right? Exactly. Specifically, security and governance of information assurance, all these different topics that are so critical that the government agencies in particular need to be mindful of. And that doesn't change when you enter into a hybrid multi-cloud environment. So government agencies are looking for IT solutions with security built in and to leverage automation to reduce the risks from human error. So that's as common as we've seen it over the years in our industry, but becomes even more significant when you're talking about your workloads being run in a hybrid multi-cloud environment. So companies like Nutanix design security from the ground up, as opposed to sort of an afterthought, a later on bolt-on, if you will. We also use AI-driven automation to identify key vulnerabilities and manage issues like configuration drift. This allows us to very easily address software mandates like the DODN APL, CISA CDM, the NIST 800-53 requirements, and so on. So another great example with Nutanix is our software ships stay compliant on delivery. And we actually use XML machine-readable code that automatically runs a tool called SaltStack for configuration management and CMS, and this allows for auto remediation and allows us to do rolling checks to ensure you're always in compliance, and then provide the updates on a regular basis as those STIG updates are released.
Right. So the question then is security governance. I mean, who's responsible ultimately? It sounds like the agency, even in using a cloud provider, should have...
It's on their shoulders.
It's on their shoulders. And which means to some degree you need visibility into what's going on in that cloud. You can't treat your cloud provider as a black box. And so on that topic of black box, you have something called Data Lens, which is a hole in the black box, I guess. Tell us about that.
So that's a SaaS-based security product that delivers ransomware resilience for one, and intelligent analytics for unstructured data on the Nutanix cloud platform. So this service offers global data visibility to proactively assess and mitigate data security risks. And customers use it to identify anomalous activity by auditing user behavior, and then this adheres to the set of compliance requirements provided by the agency, all the while enabling efficient data lifecycle management.
All right, and I want to talk about the way in which applications are architected and deployed in the cloud. We were talking earlier about legacy applications, mainframe types, or COBOL, this kind of thing, anything coded more than 25 years ago, which are still running. You can't really abstract those so far as is practical. On the other hand, new applications and AI algorithms, people design them for cloud native hosting. And therefore they use some of the convergence technologies, hyperscale technologies, containerization, and all of this. So how do you balance that, and how do you approach that to make sure that you can take best advantage of the cloud, because containers really give you the most flexibility as opposed to object-sized virtual machines.
So managing containerized applications across clouds and edge sites involves a number of strategies and tools. Agencies are looking for consistency, rock-solid security, and efficiency. Federal agencies, like any other organization, leverages container orchestration platforms, cloud services, and edge computing solutions to address these kinds of challenges. So Kubernetes is a popular orchestration platform that enables deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. Federal agencies often use Kubernetes to extract away the underlying infrastructure, which makes it easier to deploy and manage applications consistently across different environments.
Because what you really want with all of this is your infrastructure to be as code also, which gives you much more flexibility on workloads and cloud, inter-cloud mobility then, correct?
Absolutely, yep. So companies like Nutanix, we offer a Kubernetes engine that supports multi-cloud extensibility for platforms like Azure, Azure Arc, AWS, Elastic Kubernetes, Google's Anthos, Red Hat's OpenShift Kubernetes platform, all for hybrid clouds. So this ensures the flexibility they're looking for regardless of the classification.
Right, so it's really about how you place your workloads and optimize them than it is about always having to refactor everything.
Right.
Any final thoughts on hybrid cloud, dealing with multiple hybrid clouds as agencies move into this kind of new world here?
Absolutely. So we are seeing a continual evolution in the hybrid multi-cloud world and IT in general. And Nutanix has actually done an amazing job defining a category. So there's a great book out there. It's called Playing Bigger. And it's written by Al Ramadan and a couple other VCs. Al Ramadan's famous for his experience with Macromedia and bringing Flash into the mainstream and new rich user web experiences that defined a category, right, in terms of a new rich user experience on the web. We've done the same thing for the hybrid multi-cloud in the sense that we're defining and designing this category where no one else has the capability through a software-defined offering to provide a seamless user experience while you migrate your applications and services between or across different cloud platforms. So that's true definition of hybrid cloud. And now as we see the multi-hybrid cloud era upon us, this provides a very unique platform to enable agencies to have that flexibility across those environments.
So in a sense, really, with this layer that Nutanix provides, it's as if it was just a data center, essentially, and then what's going on among the clouds and between the clouds and your own premises is
same common view, same common experience, and a lot of very rich user experience and simplified automation built in to enable that.
Okay, some good thoughts. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Greg O'Connell is the Senior Director for U.S. Federal at Nutanix. I'm Federal Drive host Tom Temin. You're watching Federal News Network. Let's go back to the studio now for more on the Industry Exchange Cloud.